I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board, Thursday, August 1st. It is 1 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Sean Poole.
Here.
Member Randy Stout.
Here.
Member Lori Simpson.
Here.
Member Joe Malin.
Here.
Member Michael Ferez. Let the record show that Member Michael Ferez is absent from today's meeting. Alternate Member Denise McKenzie. City Attorney Nancy Meyer.
Here.
Old business first. Do you have any comments or discussion regarding the meeting, minutes from last meeting? There is something.
Is the microphone on?
Yeah. We are going to ask Miss Nancy, their attorney, to give you a little dissertation on what's going to happen today and the procedures we're going to use to follow. I know everybody here would like to have their voice be heard, and that's what we're here for today, to hear what you have to say.
Yes, we know you all want your 3 minutes, and that's what we want to make sure that will happen. So just so everyone understands the process for today, there'll be no decisions being made today. Okay, so we want to hear what you have to say. Board wants to hear your input. City planner's here. She wants to hear your input. I don't know if there's someone here for the developer or not, but if they are, they want to hear your input. So what's going to happen is city planner is going to give a presentation. If the developer is present, they will be giving a presentation. It will then go to public comment. Public comment per the city's code is 3 minutes per person. You're going to get your 3 minutes if you signed up to give public comment, or later on he'll say you didn't sign up. Does anyone else want to speak? And if Sean lets you come up here, you'll have your 3 minutes. It's your comment. It's not going to be a question and answer period. If you have questions, pose them, but you're not getting answers today. This will help city planner and the developer and the board prepare for the next meeting, which is August 13th at 1 p.m. Okay? So don't feel insulted or upset if you ask a question and we all stare at you. We want you to have 3 minutes to comment, but there'll be no back and forth at this point. I think that covers it for now.
Absolutely.
Right? So we'll get started.
Okay. We'll start with comments from the general public. Mr. McCleary, these comments will be just general comments, not regarding the actual what we're discussing.
Todd McClary, 8731 Betty Street. My general comments is, I know regarding the agenda, which is a general comment, this was originally posted as a voting meeting. A lot of people here today had taken time off from work to express their comments to a voting meeting with the understanding that this would be a vote up or down. This was posted on the property as a voted meeting. So to change this last minute and make it a non-voting meeting and everyone come back here 2 weeks from now is actually very disappointing on behalf of myself and my wife and other residents, that they are taking time off and the city is messing around and wasting people's time to do this. Yes, you could have had a workshop. That's what these are called, workshops, when you get people's unofficial input and push it through that way. But the city is posting properties and posting notices and putting agendas on and then changing everything last minute. It is kind of disgusting for a professional organization that's supposed to be impacting the citizens of Port Richey and changing everything last minute after they take their very valuable private time to try and have input to the city. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brown. Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Johnny Brown. I live at 4849 Waterside Drive, Port Richey. I'm here basically to support Todd, and I believe that this should have been a voting meeting. That's what I was told it would be for my wife and I to attend. So we're just totally disappointed in that. Okay. And I know the mayor and some of the council people are here, and I hope this committee is paying attention to some of the ways that they are changing the plan that was set forth just a year ago for this city. So that's all I have to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coyle.
My name is Ross Coyle. I live at 5531 Pasco Way. Right now, it's a little premature. I'm a little unclear as to what everything is that's going on. I've heard that there's going to be two 12-story condominiums on the waterfront and a 5-story parking garage that would be directly across the street from my house. I'm right on the edge of the property, so any construction that's going to take place there is going to directly affect me. I don't know what, I wish I would have had the chance to make my comments at the end of this meeting so I would have a little more clarity as to what's going on. However, from everybody that I've talked to, it just 12-story condominium just seems completely out of place.
So, just a point of order. This is just a general comment. You're more than welcome to come back and comment regarding the actual each individual product.
Okay, I mean, if you guys can address some of my questions, I'd love to come back and then comment on that, because I'm afraid I'm a little bit ignorant as to
That's all right.
what's going on. So, okay, I'll do that then.
Appreciate it. All right, at this time I'll close unless there's anybody else who'd like a general comment. Sure, please, sir. State your name for the record. Address.
Hey, Sean. Yeah, Phil Apps, ABTS, 5436 Blue Point Drive. I've got a question as much as a comment, and I know it's a comment, but you move this to the 13th. There's also a council meeting on 13th where this is supposed to be decided. Is that still happening?
No.
You're going to slam this through and then?
Dates are, they changed too.
There's a council meeting on the 13th, but the meeting regarding this will be on the 27th, not the 13th.
So the posted signs are incorrect then. Are we going to repost those signs?
They did today.
Correctly.
They did. Okay, thank you. All right, well, we'll have comment again, right?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sean.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time I'll close the general comments, general public comments. All right. Do we have any comments or just general comments from the board?
Is this coming with staff recommendation? This change? This with
The next meeting will have more staff recommendation dates and you're going to say, yeah.
Correct. You didn't have any staff recommendations in your packet currently. Correct? All right. Any other? Yes.
Did a notice go out to the residents that are within 200 feet of the property?
Yes, certified mail was sent out.
They did, okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question, but
Sure.
I don't know who to ask. Why was it changed the purpose of this meeting?
Why the meeting dates were changed.
As far as making a voting meeting as opposed to a non-voting meeting.
Well, we advertised it based upon the thought that there would possibly be action or not. Because again, we can't dictate that you as a board make a decision at any point in time. So it could easily have been that, today, if, our expectations were you were going to have questions and you needed answers that we couldn't provide, that meeting would be continued or to another meeting. We wanted to err on providing notice to people that this was going to be discussed. And we don't know exactly how that was going to play out. Based upon, some of the information coming in later than what we anticipated, we felt that there was no way that you could have as a board all the information you would need to make a decision. And we didn't want you to feel that you had to make a decision. And so we wanted to lay out a different time frame that would allow you, if you needed that next meeting, which we believe we prefer you to take the time to consider all this, possibly have another meeting after that if you so need to get that information. And again, if we sit here on the 13th and you say to us, we need more information, guess what? We're going to go and renotice that next meeting we have to make sure the public is aware that you're acting on something, or potentially going to be acting on it. So That's why we renoticed it, because again, we felt that, one, we weren't going to have all the information. And we didn't want to put that pressure on your shoulders to feel that you had to make a decision without having the information that you need to make the decision.
Understood. That's satisfying? Okay. Yes, please.
Is there a reason that this public hearing wasn't held after 5?
Is there a reason it wasn't held until after
After
5?
5 p.m.? That's what
PNC made a decision several months, probably 6 months ago, 8 months ago, because we had the longer meetings. Because most of us everybody on the board are citizens, residents of the city. We all have jobs as well, but the last couple meetings went long, and because of that fact, when we were starting at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and having staff stay in the extra, we thought it would be easier just to move them to daytime, because we take time out of our jobs to do the same thing. And so that's why it's been that way ever since.
right, but this is specifically a public hearing.
Every single one of them is public.
Oh, they are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Every one is public. I implore the citizens to show up, because we help make our recommendations to council based off of how we respond to our residents and our neighbors. So, I mean, I was in Europe and I was getting phone calls and texts from all my neighbors trying to find out, making sure at first I was going to be here, and secondly, what my thoughts were with this whole meeting. So, of course, we can't share our thoughts on that. That's what we don't. We have thoughts, right? So we're here to have that. And I understand Mr. McCleary's concern to the fact that we believe this is a voting meeting. I had the same concerns when I first read it. I'm like, I felt blindsided at the fact it was going to be a voting meeting. But then there's no way we can make the decision. The city manager made it very clear. This is a multifaceted thing that we have to work through. This is the first step, multiple meeting process, and I think it's best served for the citizens and for the board to be able to take the time today, in particular, to listen to what everybody has to say, digest that, present our questions. Everybody if you've written your name on the board, I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your concerns. I want you to voice those to us, because that helps us make a better recommendation. And I have, after reading through it on a 9-hour flight yesterday, I've got lots of questions too. So it's definitely the reason we do it. And the 1 o'clock meeting today makes the most sense. So,
No, totally.
and I apologize to people if you did take the time off because of that fact. So, all right. That being said, any other questions? All right. I'm going to close the comments from the chair and the board currently from that standpoint, and we will start moving forward. Today on the agenda, the first piece is number 1, it's regarding the amendment to the text of the City of Port Richey Comprehensive Plan to create a new land use category for future application. Ms. Nancy.
Yes, I think we're going to start with Ms. Varana, the city planner, and she will present the information she has to share with you.
Wonderful.
And I will state, I don't know if I said this earlier, from the board's perspective, obviously if you have questions of her, please ask them, and she can, the information necessary to bring it back to you next week to get the information that you need to help you.
All righty. Ready? So my name is Tammy Vrana with Vrana Consulting, and I am your city's city planner. I've been serving in this capacity since 2012, helping the city with land development, application reviews and comprehensive planning, that sort of thing. I have my own company for the last 17, 18 years, and I work 100% for local governments. So all my paychecks come from cities, counties, MPOs, and the Department of Transportation. Thank you, Department of Transportation. So today we're here to talk about some applications that we received, the city received, for amendments to your adopted comprehensive plan. And today is going to be somewhat educational. When we come back to you, there'll be a more structured presentation that's more typical of these types of applications. But we did receive information very late last week, and the information in my staff reports are, in some cases, incomplete, and some cases I would like to have some time to think about it. So let's just kind of refer to those, but know that you will be getting up-to-date staff reports very quickly. So just to reiterate, this is for a requested text amendment and for 2 future land use map amendments. That's the request by a private party. So I've color-coded throughout based on these two applicants. We have the first applicant, SCP Rio, and you can see the shape of their property there in the blue. And then the other one is SCP Bayou Brothers, LLC, and the shape of their parcel is in purple. And then the property ID numbers and the agent of record for both of those property owners are listed below. The first request is a request for an amendment to the text, the policies of your comprehensive plan. This is typically something that is handled during the time when a comprehensive plan is being developed or it's being updated, and the community comes together and they decide what their vision is for the community. That's what you all did back in, I believe, 1998 when this plan was first adopted, and then again in 2010 when there was a major update. In some cases, though, you can have an opportunity for members of the public outside to come in and to request or suggest a change to the text in your comprehensive plan. I want to bring up, this is what was submitted by the applicant. The section in yellow we want to take a little bit of a closer look at. This is a future land use category. It's not a future land use map amendment. So we want to make sure that that area that they're proposing, which is essentially the Cody River Landing area plus the old mobile home park. So it's the area north of the river, west of US 19, south of Pasco Way, excluding the waterfront park. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't say the this future land use category doesn't encompass this area, but it's applicable to. So we're looking at more land use criteria, so locational criteria, as opposed to saying this is the area. So in the future, if someone has a property within this area, they have the ability to come in and ask for a future land use map to use this category, just like with any other category in your comprehensive plan. So this is the sub area. Forgot I had the map here. Point to it. North is to the top. Forgot my north arrow. These are the parcels. So you could, again, parcel, the one set in blue is, I'm calling it number 1, and the other parcel in purple is number 2. That's to the north. So the requested change in this text amendment would be to have a category that allows up to 60 units per acre with a maximum of 900 units across this entire area. It would be capped at 900 units. It also would allow for up to a 1.0 floor area ratio, which is a way of measuring non-residential or commercial type uses, looking at the floor area ratio. So a floor area ratio of 1 would be, you could spread it across your entire property, that's 100% of your property, but you could do it in 2 floors and then it would be also 1. So it depends on how you arrange it, but floor area ratio is essentially, a 1 is the exact same size as your lot. Of course, there's regulations that apply that change the design. So in this first property, set of properties, it is a parcel, the 2 parcels together have 3.64 acres. Under the current situation, they would be allowed 56 units, so that's on the ground adopted policy today, and then non-residential would be up to 95,000 and change square feet. Under the proposal of 60 units per acre and the 1.0 floor area ratio, that 56 units would jump to 218 units, and the non-residential would go from 95,000 to 158,500 thereabouts. So for the second application, same provisions of 18 units per acre, 0.6 FAR, and then this would actually jump, it would be the 60 units per acre and the 1.0 FAR, allowing from 88 units today to the potential for 295 units, 128,500 and change for non-residential today, but 315,000 square feet if this is approved. Oops. So this is just a little bit of a primer, and I was here before the P&Z back in December. We did a little intro to the comprehensive plan, so I just brought some of these with me. Again, a comprehensive plan is a long-range plan. It's a written document. It explains the community's shared vision for their future. It sets goals, objectives, and policies for growth and development and conservation activities that affect the city. It helps to protect your valued places and promote economic prosperity. And you implement your comprehensive plan through your land development regulations, your zoning code, infrastructure expenditures, city budgets, and et cetera. So this is the picture of the first few pages of your City of Port Richey Comprehensive Plan. In the introduction, it says that it reflects the community's vision for its present and future, and the plan's goals, objectives, and policies outline the strategies for achieving this vision. So as I mentioned before, the plan was developed or adopted in 1998, updated in 2010. So that is essentially articulates your vision that was established at that time. The comprehensive plan includes a future land use element, which is what is being proposed to be amended through this text change. The text change includes a future land use category, a new one, that sets out allowable uses, your maximum density and intensity, so your development intensity in terms of housing units per acre, and your floor area ratio for non-residential uses. Future land use categories also sometimes include land use compatibility criteria, so what is compatible. The policies certainly do in your comp plan. You'll see that in the staff report. The comp plan also indicates public facility levels of service standards that the city is by law required to make sure that those are adequate before any development occurs that would consume those facility resources. And then you see your future land use map on the side. I put this old version up. This is actually the future land use map that is in the state of Florida's records, because the comp plan future land use map right now, it needs to be corrected a little bit. But this is actually, right now the waterfront overlay district is shown on the future land use map, and that's a zoning designation. So we've kind of blended those two over the years. But this one will show you that the majority of this Cody River Landing and the mobile home park area have a commercial mixed use land use category. And there's, it does kind of outline the waterfront district there, but it's the actual designation is commercial mixed use. So this shows the set of future land use categories that exist in your comprehensive plan today. And as I put in the staff report, you know, these were developed at a time when West Pasco was, you know, it was developing, it was urbanizing, it was a very suburban environment. And what you may be lacking in your comprehensive plan today is a future land use category that accommodates mixed use, walkable mixed use, urban type development. But you can see today the most that you can achieve within the city is 18 units per acre, and the highest floor area ratio is 0.6 FAR. So when we're looking at a comprehensive plan amendment, we're required to make sure that the comprehensive plan amendment is consistent with your adopted comprehensive plan. As I mentioned before, there needs to be the ability to be served with public facilities and services, including the potable water supply, so making sure you have enough resources under your water use permit to be able to supply the needs of the population today and as planned in the future. Your potable water facilities, such as your water treatment plant and distribution facilities. Same with wastewater facilities. Solid waste disposal, so is there enough capacity in the county's landfill and resource recovery facility to handle the solid waste that's generated by residents and businesses. Stormwater drainage, making sure that those standards are met. Roads, making sure that your collector and arterial facilities, which include in the city, I believe it's US 19, Ridge Road, and Grand Boulevard, maybe Washington, I think Washington's in there too. And then parks and recreational facilities. And I'll go into more depth at the next meeting as to the achievement of those level of service standards, but off the top of my head, you have a lot of parks, but some of the facilities that you have are deficient. So those are things that you're not meeting at this point in time. I believe the other facilities could be served under a development scenario that's being proposed. Roads is another issue. Level of service is F for US 19. Your standard is level of service D. It's kind of like a grading scale, like a report card. A is good, F is bad. So, but there are provisions in place for a developer to be able to pay into the city's funds for transportation projects, and so that they can help mitigate what their impacts are on the facility. Because, of course, not everything that happens on US 19 started in Port Richey. It's coming from everywhere. We also look at land use compatibility. This is another top consistency consideration. There's a lot of policies in the comp plan. What we really want to hone in on is the density and intensity that's allowed into your future land use categories, and also your compatibility criteria. When we think about compatibility, we look at land uses. Are the land uses that are being proposed complementary and compatible with the land uses around it? And those could be existing land uses, but they also could be planned land uses. So at the bottom of this list, you'll see there's a special area plan, which is kind of like a generic term. But if a community decided through their visioning process that they wanted to do something more in an area, they could have a plan that says, this is what we want to be, and then you could measure your compatibility based on what you have now and what the plan is for the future. Development intensity, as I mentioned before, that's measured in terms of dwelling units per acre and your non-residential floor area ratio. And then the locational criteria. So as I mentioned before, with the text amendment, I wanted to make that little tweak. It's very customary for a future land use category to include locational criteria. Today, for your commercial mixed use category, it'll say something like commercial uses, mixed use along the highway. So it kind of tells you where those uses are appropriate. So speaking of special area plans, the community did come together in late 1998, and I will say that I'm old enough that I was on this team as a baby planner working on this waterfront district intermodal master plan. And in that plan, it laid out, it had like a concept there to the right, and it also included some areas on the east side of US 19, but the city went forward and they developed standards, zoning standards that apply just to the area west of US 19. And that waterfront overlay district plan and eventually code provisions, your land development code, was to enhance and revitalize the city as an economic focal point, to improve the physical image of the community, to protect the natural environment, to allow for a variety of commercial uses, and to improve internal compatibility and function of the area. Overall, to create a destination in the city of Port Richey. So over the years, I think it was maybe 26 years ago that was, if my math is correct, 26 years ago that initial waterfront master plan was created. And so you haven't necessarily achieved that. You're still wanting to do more within your area. So we look at some ways that maybe there are barriers, potentially. These are not related to Port Richey. These are just general barriers. But one of the top ones is your development regulations. Is there something in your regulations that might be holding back investment in an area? So it's just something to think about. I'm not saying that it's true or not. So this is going to jump to the actual future land use map amendments and just give you some context. So you can see the little yellow dots up there. That's in the regional context where these future land use map amendments are proposed. This is showing it a little up close in the neighborhood. Here's some site a little closer so you can see what's on the site. So you've got some development, of course, on the old Gildog site, and then the mobile home park is vacant. These are just some views. I have a lot of pictures, but I decided not to. I'm sure you've all driven out there many, many times. So surrounding these properties today, so you can see with the purple site to the north, it's surrounded by the waterfront park. There are residential areas to the south and also some commercial and office uses to the south. Of course, office or commercial uses to the east and to the south. And then if we look to the blue set of parcels, parcels number 1, you've got water and the waterfront park to the north. You've got commercial mixed-use areas. I'm not quite sure why that's showing up as industrial in that color, so that's a little bit off, but pretty much commercial uses around that parcel that's blue. This is the future land use map. Again, the purple should be red. It's commercial mixed use. But you can see that pretty much it's commercial mixed use and then the recreation open space uses surrounding these parcels. As far as zoning, you have the C2, which is the waterfront commercial district. That's along the waterfront, along the Miller's Bayou and the river. And then closer to US 19, you've got C3, which is your general commercial categories. And then to the north, you've got R2 residential, it's a 2-family residential zoning. This is just your future land use map in case we need to look at it. Here's your zoning atlas. Oh, and this is really this ends. This is just for later. So this is just showing jobs inflow and outflow, but it's just background information. So I'm not going to go any further with this, and we'll keep this up right here. So let me. So I think that is what I have to present to you today. As I mentioned before, it'll be a little more structured as a land use case next time, once I've had a chance to go in and revise those staff reports. And
Thank you.
happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right, before we
Yeah, I was going to see, is there anyone here on behalf of the developer?
Yep.
Okay. If you'd like to present, this is your time to do so.
please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Ryan Burke, 4529 Harbor Point Drive. I think what I'd say to you all and to everyone in here is I've tried to say it time and time again, I live here, I'm local to here, I love this area. And so as you have questions, I'm totally fine with you guys asking me questions at any point in time. As you guys know, this was new. The city hasn't gone through this process before that we could find or were aware of. How this project has come about was a personal desire and a desire of my family and friends to make this an area that can be sustained long term. Make it an area that you have things to go to, you have things to do, to create much more publicly accessible waterfront, to make it an attraction, make it something our city can be proud of, and knowing that there's a lot of financial needs of the city. There's a lot of things that maybe we haven't fully realized yet, but that are coming. Things I'd love to see improved, like the sidewalks along Bay Boulevard. All of those things cost money. They 100% cost money. There's an inflow happening in this area. Moffitt Cancer Center is building the largest cancer research institute in the world, 10 miles from here. Wanted to make sure it's something that we could all be extremely proud of. And wanted to do so in collaboration, hand in hand, excuse me, with the city. The way the existing plans were written, it was our understanding we couldn't actually do that because we couldn't really have a conversation around, hey, if we're going to bring density, and density is really, it's for financial reasons. It's to help support the businesses that you want in there as well. It's to help support the local business owners, the local restaurants, because if you talk to any of them, then back there today, it's extremely seasonal. The weekday is very slow. It's really hard to sustain a business on those kinds of ebbs and flows. And so it provides a captured community there, but then something that is also an attraction for folks in the city and even folks from out of the city to come to and enjoy. That helps support and sustain those businesses. That all helps put money back into the city. The reason, and I heard some oohs and ahs on the the density, the reason that we wrote it this way and wanted an opportunity to really clearly explain is it would create the flexibility to pick and choose where that density is if we were to continue to expand this project to cover that entire area back there. Not including things that are existing, that are there, catches, know the owners, love them. Not to include those, but as you look at some of those other areas, how can we then be strategic? And so we want to put a cap, an absolute max on any 1 acre. And so if you actually do the math on all the available acres back there, there's no real way to get to 900. But what it allows is more flexibility to say, okay, on this piece, let's talk about it. Can we do 60 here, and that allows us to only put 20 over here or 30 over here, and can then we pull some off of the water here to create a bigger opening? It just creates flexibility, but knowing that we can't use 900, there's not, the math doesn't allow it with the existing, the parcels being considered today or any future parcels being considered. Those parcels, if they were to come into this, it would unlock some more flexibility. But as of right now, it restricts what we can do, but creates the flexibility to decide where should we have density, where should we have more public accessibility, where do we want to have more retail and mixed use and restaurants. It creates that flexibility to work with the city. I think the thing that keeps me up at night about this whole project and the amount of outside of the personal finances I've put into it, which is a lot, is what can happen if this doesn't happen. If this doesn't happen, or something like this doesn't happen, the city's going to continue to need to find ways to generate some revenue to sustain. If this doesn't happen, someone that's not from the community can come in and buy these parcels. And within the current comprehensive plan today and the current zoning, there are things that can go in there. But any investor is going to look at, can they go in there and can they do so without me losing my investment? And I think everyone can look up and down 19 and see what types of places those are that are very safe and very attractive investments to pure investors today. Those are things like storage units. That's a very sound, stable investment in today's economy. This is not something I want there. And so for me, it was much taking a chance on the city to see, can we do something collaboratively on this that makes sense? And can we do so in a way that's thoughtful and helps redevelop the road infrastructure back there, helps redevelop the waterfront with walkable boardwalks, creates a safer place for pedestrian traffic, and is really something that I think was the vision back in 1998, which was a central focal point to this city that attracts people into it. And that's our goal here and what we're trying to accomplish. But really the biggest point of clarity is the reason it was written the way it was to create that flexibility while putting very, very strict limitations on what could be done on any one of them, and then allowing us to have those conversations that really need to be had, which is what should we do and how can we start laying this out and really incorporating feedback from the public, which was they want water access, they want more green space. Those things are all doable. They 100% are. But we can't do so without some certainty of being able to support that. So happy to answer any other questions anyone has. I'm not a real estate developer. I'll tell you guys that right now. I'm not a real estate developer. This is new to me. I'm learning as I go with this. I'm supported by a great team of folks that one of them is someone I've known for 30 plus years. And so the team's mixed of local folks and folks from outside. We've got folks right in the community that are part of the team, and then experts from outside. And so we are not looking at this purely as, hey, can we grab this as a great real estate deal and turn it into something we can all make a ton of money on. I think anyone would call us pretty foolish if that was our vision. There's a reason that there hasn't been a big investment back there in a long time. And so I was willing at a point in my life where I was able to take a chance here and try to do something that's really giving back to the community in a positive way. And got a fairly long history of doing that philanthropically in this community, and hope that we can find a way to work through this together to figure out a good plan that makes sense and helps the city sustain long term. That's all.
Thank you.
I have a question.
No,
Wait.
no, there's no mic.
Nancy.
After.
After.
You can talk to him after, please.
Do public comments first. Okay. Perfect. All right, at this time, I'm going to open up to public comment, and I will do it in order that was written on the sheet. Mr. McClary, you are first.
Todd, as you walk up, I'm just going to say one thing, not about you. Come on up. City clerk has received 30-ish emails, I believe.
Yes, I believe it's about 25.
Okay, that we need a motion to include those as part of your record. If someone is interested.
You want to do that beforehand?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Okay. Now you will get them for your review as we move forward, but of course not while Mr. McClary is speaking.
Perfect. Mr. McClary.
Todd McClary, 8731 Betty Street. There's a number of things to unpack here. First, I'll start off with the comments you heard earlier, and then I'll get into my own comments for this. I know the city planner mentioned at one point that the comprehensive land use plan was adopted in 1998, I believe redone in 2010. It's actually right now in the process of being redone. The Comprehensive Land Use Committee, which we'll hear more about in a little bit, has been reviewing the comprehensive land use for the past 3 months. Denise is on that comprehensive land use, as am I. We've talked about everything having to do with comprehensive land use, except this, which is quite curious if you think about it overall, and instead it's going to Planning and Zoning Committee. So right now, the city is undergoing an update to its comprehensive land use. For everyone in the audience, you may not be aware of that, but that has a process. There is a state requirement for that, for submission of it. I believe it's due in July, or was due, but we're running late for that, and obviously those items should be incorporated therein, including something of this nature. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind. The second part, I believe Mr. Burke mentioned that he was promoting open space. Now, all we can do is go by the documents of this agenda. Presumably they were complete. Apparently they were not, and we were hoping and praying that things would be in time and whatever, but those documents here call for an 80% land coverage of the 2 parcels involved, which means of the 13 acres under control by Mr. Burke, a good, I believe, 11 of them will be covered by buildings, parking lots, boardwalks, whatever. So the promotion of open space and everything of that nature is a little bit misleading to the board overall with an 80% lot coverage. Another item that the planner mentioned was that when the densities of Port Richey were created, Pasco was much more rural and that sort of thing, and that's where you got your 18 units per acre and all that. Well, again, that's a little misleading in and of itself. Yes, she is correct. When it was adopted, it was, a rural point. But if you look at the Pasco's land use plan, Newport Richey's land use plan, they don't go above 30 units per acre. Yet the applicant is requesting 60 units per acre. I guess we're trying to jump ahead of the times and get in front of everybody. But so a couple things to keep in mind regarding those testimonies. Now, probably the most important part you have to understand as planning and zoning is, and the citizens, you are not voting for 2 parcels here. In the applicant's own document, could someone please yield their time to me?
I yield my time.
Then if that's going to happen, you need name and address, and that you're giving your time to Mr. McClary, which means you cannot speak yourself later.
Jeff Reichert, 8141 Aquila Street, San Pebble.
Thank you.
I yield my time to this gentleman.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes.
So you are not voting on two parcels at 60 units per acre. In the application submitted by the applicant, which I'm not sure how they did this, but they're also saying, oh yes, this will expand to other areas of the WOT. So essentially, they are putting in an application for owners that are not listed on the application. Aside from that, there's been no notification for the other owners of the WOD. So we're in a little bit of a quandary here that not everyone's notified who's impacted. There are applicants identified here that are not part of the application process. So that is something that needs to be addressed, I believe, by the city administration and legal, because that's something that would be looked at by the state authorities, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, again, I stated that you are impacting areas of the WOD in totality. Right now, the WOD is listed at 19.47 acres of property. According to the testimony that, or the presentation that the planner gave, they're also going to be adding another 5 acres to the WOD, which brings you to a total of around 24 acres. At 60 units per acre of potential density. Now, there's a note in the application that says, well, it's at City Council's discretion. You cannot disadvantage a landowner to the advantage of another landowner. This applicant has shown no hardship, has shown no need other than they want it. Therefore, you are essentially opening the same densities, everything you're voting for these two parcels, you're opening them across the WOD in its entirety, plus the 5 acres. So, in some of those numbers, you'll see in your application, they're noting 1,700 potential new residents and 469 units. The math, again, is a little skewed in the application because they're actually applying for the entire WOD. If you put that real math in, you are actually opening yourself up to 1,184 new units and a total new resident population of 5,429 people, using the math provided for in the documentation of the application. So we're not talking about 1,710 residents, we're talking about over 5,000 residents. Now, ironically, in this application, there is no mention or feedback from any of the various departments whether they can support increasing our population by 160%, roughly. So there is a lot to this that I don't believe the city administration, city attorney, or anybody is really looking at as part of this application process. They're just putting it in. I need someone to yield my time, their time. I'm just getting warmed up, people.
Don Bonastelli, 4550 Bay Boulevard, San Pebble Condos.
You want to go ahead and find the next person so you don't have to interrupt us?
I need 2 more.
One more, right? 12 minutes max. That's not.
Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. I yield my 3 minutes to you.
Thank you.
That's all he needs. He's maxed.
Seth Cap, 7638 Grand Boulevard.
12 minutes max. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back to the charter here. We're violating the charter right now. Per charter, section 8.04, this comprehensive land use plan shall be in compliance with general law. We can get to that in a future meeting. The comprehensive land use plan when approved by the council shall serve as a city long-term growth plan, blah, blah, blah. From time to time, in accordance with general law or when deemed necessary, a generalized update, the council shall appoint 4 members, which they have, to a 4-person committee to review and modify the comprehensive land use plan. That's not the zoning planning and zoning board. You have a different area of your jurisdiction. Of course, you do zoning and all that wonderful stuff, but the more important one is, let's make sure I get it. To investigate and make recommendation on all new plats, which this is theoretically, to review all plans for subdivision, what this is, condominium complex, oh wow, and any other projects substantially impacting the city, and to ensure their compliance with the comprehensive land use plan. Well, we know it's not in compliance with the current comprehensive land use plan because they're asking you to modify the current comprehensive land use plan. So by definition, you should say immediately, this does not abide and move on with your lives, because this isn't the department or the committee for that review. It's the Comprehensive Land Use Committee, per city charter. That's all I'm going by. And by the way, you're covered under Section 8.01 for your duties. Now, I'll go a little faster here because I'm apparently limited on my thing, but let's go into the original application itself. The ownership, per the applicant, is listed as SCP Rio LLC and SCP Bayou Brothers LLC, neither of which exist according to Sunbiz. So they're not viable LLCs. They're not owners. If you go on the Pasco County Land Appraisers, they're not the ownership of the land. I'm not going to tell you who the ownership of the land is. Let them figure out, or the city administration figure it out. You think that would be something they check right away. But they're close, just not there. So that's another problem. It's just a total lack of looking at these documents and making sure that it's correct before it gets presented to you, presented to the citizens, or anything of that nature. Now, the applications themselves, there's a lot of discrepancies between which of the zonings these parcels fall under. There's one that's in C2, one that's in C3. The application erroneously lists them both in C2. That's an error that is within the documents. As was mentioned, there are no staff reports for this review. Again, we thought this was a voting meeting, but I guess not. But as I mentioned earlier, you're potentially increasing over the entire area your population by 160%. There's no input from police. Do we need more police? What are the costs of the police to address all of these new potential residents as part of your comprehensive land use plan? What about fire? Do we need fire trucks? New fire trucks? Do we need a bigger fire station? That's something that's usually addressed by most agencies as they go through this. Probably most important, water. There's no feedback from the utility department what is available in terms of water supply or wastewater treatment as part of this. That's all very important feedback when you're increasing your population by 160%. Has the Pasco County wastewater even weighed in? Are they able to treat that much effluent coming out of the city of Port Richey? What type of pipes are needed between this development and this water sewer treatment plant? There's no impact because no one bothered to ask them. Pasco County solid waste. Right now, the application states 515 tons of solid waste generation is going to be by this. The real number is actually 1,635 tons of solid waste. No one bothered to ask Pasco County solid waste, are they able to do that? No engineer has reviewed any of this. And I've been in business, this type of business, for over 20 years. Usually an application comes in, there's engineer after engineer telling everybody how great this is and how much this isn't a problem. I've never seen an application be presented to a board for approval with nothing. No one says it's good other than a thumbs up from the administration that you're not going to have an issue. No engineers are looking at things. No one from outside of the, oh boy. Okay, I got to keep going then. No one outside of the council or outside of the state has said, can we accept this new population and this new development? State law, and specifically FS 163-3177 states all of that must be provided as part of an adjustment to your comprehensive land use. We're missing it. We're just violating things left and right because we want to get a development through. Recreation and open space, major component of our comprehensive land use. They said that according to their own math that we were going to be short on a lot of recreational open space, parks, boat ramps, beaches, fishing piers. Quadruple that shortage, it makes it even worse. So to my math, we have to come up with another 3.6 miles of biking trails to accommodate this new population within and be in compliance with our comprehensive land use. There is so much being impacted by this comprehensive land use that isn't being considered. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Oh, so I'm sorry, Cynthia Malin? Or did she already? She yielded this time. I'm sorry.
She did not.
She did not. Oh.
She won't let me talk, so I'm going to talk.
Cynthia Malin, 5446 Blue Point Drive. Just the same thing as to mirror what Todd said. I do agree with almost everything he said. I think we're rushing this whole process. We haven't done the due process that we've to work through the proper steps in doing this. Another thing that we need to look at is traffic. Old Post Road is now going to become the road to Walmart's, and we already do about 11,500 cars per week. That's going to be tremendously increased in that traffic and the amount of speeding that goes up and down that road. We just need to really step back. We need to think about this. I don't think that we want to agree to the maximum amount of population density. I think we could find something much lower than that and be agreeable in those aspects. But I think we really need to watch our steps and take a good look at what we're doing and make sure we're making proper steps to improve the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McClary.
Sherry McClary, 8731 Betty Street. I agree with everything that my husband said, and I think if the city starts focusing on what matters, like cleaning up the garbage, cleaning things up in and of itself, developers will be knocking down our door to be here. But right now, nobody wants to drive by garbage on the streets, seawalls falling in because the codes haven't been adjusted, grass that's 52 feet high, trailers and mechanical equipment in lots, and then go to their apartment, because these aren't going to be top-end condos. These are going to be low-income housing is what we're talking about with that density, not high-end condos. But I don't even think people in low-income housing will want to drive by that. So we should start to clean up the city and think about other areas that we've been talking about for years, since we've been here over 7 years. Address that, and then developers that really care will be here to develop properly. And listening to the surveys that we spent $15,000 on, that the citizens already spoke and said what they wanted it to look like, and have been ignored by certain individuals that are elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Fred Johnson, 8141 Aquila. My problem is, and it may be me, but my observation as I started analyzing everything that's been said, and again, this is looking at me, but what came to my mind was something called the Keystone Cops. And that, you'd have to kind of date if you know what the Keystone Cops are. But a lot of disorganization, a lot of miscommunication, and some communication, and I don't know where it's real or not, but it majorly concerns me as a full-time resident of this city. Is there a plan that we can look at right now, a proposal that meets all of what Todd was talking about, that we can see? If it is, I don't know it. And from people that I'm talking to, they don't know it either. So I understand there's going to be another meeting in about 2 weeks where there's going to be votes on this issue with this much miscommunication. Don't see it. I'm asking you guys to take a little deeper, a little step back, a little more communication, a little more presentation, so we can know what's happening to my backyard.
Go. I passed. Oh, you passed. Mr. Bonestell. You yielded as well. Jeffrey Shard?
I yielded to.
You yielded as well. Fantastic. Patty?
Gino East. I'll yield to anybody who wants to talk.
They won't let me
Oh, she wants to, yes, you have to person name.
I got more.
We'll see if someone needs more than 3 minutes.
If you need more, then you.
Yeah.
Mr.
My first time.
Hold on, wait. We have people that signed up.
Sprout, 8141.
Are you on?
Wait,
Did you?
wait.
Oh.
Hold on.
We have to go by the people that signed up and
Gotta
then
run the list first.
Yeah, and then we'll ask for anyone that's not signed up.
Oh.
Well, you don't, isn't not like that. She gets 3 minutes, you get 3 minutes.
Yeah, let's.
If it's your turn and you need more than 3 minutes, she can yield her 3 minutes. But you don't just say it's your turn and you get to cut line. So cut in line right now. All right, so sit down. We'll get to you. I promise. Yeah, right there. Right now it looks like we're at Johnny Brown.
Johnny Brown?
There we go. He's been trying.
He's raising his hand. I'm trying to get you.
My wife says I'm impatient. Johnny Brown, 4849 Waterside Drive, Port Richey. I have a question to Mr. Burke, okay?
No, Mr. Brown, we're not gonna, if you wanna ask him, you can ask the question, but he's not gonna answer that right now. This is public comment.
Yeah.
So you make your comment.
Okay.
You can leave it out there hanging, but if you wanna, you can also talk to him later. It's your choice.
All right, but he said,
Not during public comment, he won't.
is he going to write me a letter?
No, you can talk, he can answer later, but right now I just wanna make it clear, you asked the question, you're gonna wait for an
He has my address. So.
answer.
All right, Mr. Burke.
Yes, sir.
Johnny Brown. The city spent $15,000 on doing a survey not too long ago, which I think everyone in here is aware of that. And our city council decided to ignore the results of the 70% of people who wanted a different waterfront, less intensity and so forth. And so my question to Mr. Burke is, what do you think of the 70% of people who don't want your plan? Is it only the money, or does the people matter? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Apps.
I said at the beginning what's going to happen after you all have, this is public comment. This is not question and answer.
I understand, but you told us we could ask.
You let me finish, sir. I will tell you. So you're going to have your public comment. You have questions that you pose. The city planner will take note of them if it's something relevant for her. The board's hearing your questions. Once public comment is over, they may, when they have a discussion, answer something you said, but it may be at the next meeting when you get that answer.
I understand. Okay. Okay, yes. Phil Apps, 5436 Blue Point Drive. Thank you for taking time to listen to me. I've got some questions, and I'd like for you to write these down if you would. And a lot of them are for the, I guess you wrote the staff reports. I would take it. Okay, good. But the staff recommendation is all pro-residential. It's pro adding additional residents to our city. We don't need any more residents to the city. We need to take care of the ones that we have. We need to take the waterfront and we need to turn it into something beautiful. We need to add to it. You had a plan, or the city council had a plan. Let's work that plan. Let's move forward with the plan that they had. We don't need to add any additional land uses. We have the land uses that we need. Let's take care of what we have. Let's move forward with what we have. We don't need to add residents. We don't need to add another 5,000 or 2,000 or however many it is. No offense, but that's still quite a bunch. And I would ask the person that's writing the staff reports to please consider the residents' opinions when she's writing it and not make recommendations that this is what the city should do. Because she needs to listen to the residents at the same time, not just the city or whoever's writing a paycheck. I'm not sure who that is. But please listen to the residents. As mentioned earlier, we had over 700 residents that responded to the survey. That should have been enough for city council and for the staff and possibly for anybody else that's pushing for this to understand that we don't want this. The residents don't want it, and this is just the beginning. This is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We need to move these to 5 or 6 o'clock, 6:30 maybe. That would be very accommodable for other residents. Doing it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, people have to work. Let's please try to move it to a different hour at the same time. But what we want to do is to alleviate overpopulation of our city. We've got too many residents. There's too many people moving into Florida. Everybody knows 1,000 people a day are moving in. It's not our job to accommodate them in our city. There's condominiums going all up and down the coastline right now. I've got pictures I can show you. A friend of mine's out there in a boat. He was showing me pictures of condos all up and down the coastline. We don't need them here in Port Richey. But what we do need to do is to add to the businesses that we have. We need to support those businesses. We need to give them advertising. They need street front advertising. We need to help those businesses and help them move forward. And Mr. Burke, we want to help you if you would like to do that without a big residential impact. We'll help you any way we can. But if you're offering a big residential impact, this is just the beginning of the people that you're going to have to fight to get that. So we don't want to fight. We want to work together, and we want to improve our community. And that's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Feel free.
My name is Judy Sproul. I live at 8141 Aquila Street. And, Judy Sproul, I live at 8141 Aquila Street, and I am just here. I haven't been to the other meetings, but my observation is and questions are, one, is this funded by grants? Because I heard low-income housing. So grants from the city, from the state, I don't know that much about it. I know, but money can come in. I know he's investing his own monies up front for sure, and I appreciate someone wanting to come in and revitalize the area. But I live in San Pebble. We have about 8 units there. It's about 240 condos there in a large area. But you're looking at getting maybe 1,000 condos. It's what I've got out of that. Maybe I'm wrong. But in that tiny area, that's so many people. Where are they going to park at? You know, then you're going to have a high-rise parking also. So that seems like such a small area for such a to do there in that small place. But it's just a concern. That's a concern. But we do need to go forward, and we do need to modernize our place here. And I would be for something good to go in, but not. You put 2 people on 1,000. That's 2,000 people right there, in one block, basically. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the city? Sir, please.
Yeah, Ross Coyle, 5531 Pasco Way. Actually, this whole presentation, I look at the map and everything, it's all very, very ambiguous. I don't know, maybe I'm stupid, but I didn't get much of anything out of this. Years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, there was something in the Suncoast News where they wanted to take that place and kind of create a John's Pass type feeling. You look at what Newport Richey has done around the lake. Those things seem to blend in well with the residential area. I think most of the citizens live in this community because it's a small, that's defined as a sleepy fishing village, so to speak. Sure, we can go forward, and we should, but my God, 12-story condominiums, 1,000 extra residents in that very small area. It literally is in my front yard. You know, there are other people that are blocks away, but this is in my front yard, and he has the right. Money talks, bullshit walks. We know that. I mean, all I could say is we haven't had anything to even look at. Those surveys, none of them actually represented what is actually there. All those surveys showed, I mean, from Hooters all the way down to Catches were gone. Is that a done deal? Are they all Whiskey Joe's that just opened several years ago? They're all going away so that you can have the Riverwalk? We're a residential community. We love it here, and I mean, this is going to change the whole dynamic of our entire community, and it's all on you. You guys were elected by us, the residents, to represent us. Seems to me like you guys want to represent developers. They didn't vote for you. That's all I got to say.
I'm going to break my own rule, and I'm going to respond, not directly to any particular person. I'm listening to you guys. I want to say something. I don't know if it'll make any difference to any of you, but I always want to say it. This is before planning and zoning because an applicant has requested it to be here. Any of you can do it. Anybody can bring a variance, a request to change the future land use map. It's a request from an applicant. Planning and zoning and council have an obligation, the city manager has an obligation to bring that forward. So I just want you to understand that's why it's here. And nothing's done. This is a conversation today that the city planner has begun her process because she didn't have all the information before today to complete her process. So there's more coming. I don't know if that helps anybody. I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that, if that does help.
Can someone explain that we're not elected?
Yes, and okay. This board is not elected. They've been appointed by city council to sit as the planning and zoning board. So just to make sure you guys understand that.
And we are just citizens that are here, that were appointed, and we take our time. We do this for free. We don't get paid for this. So your input does matter to us because we are your neighbors.
Right. So I just wanted to, if that helped anybody. And if you still want your 3 minutes to come up, absolutely come up. But if that helps answer that question, oh, and the city planner wants to say something. See, we're breaking all my rules now. Here we go. It's chaos being, not you. You're done.
Rana Consulting, to reiterate what Nancy was saying, that my staff reports were not based on the fullness of information when they were submitted last week. I had about 45 minutes. I purposefully did not do a recommendation because I didn't have the fullness of information to be able to put a recommendation out there. So if you see anything that looks as though it looks more oriented to residential or not, read it again, because I think what you'll see is just considerations to help everyone think about this proposal and what it would mean for the city. And so we can get more into it next week.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any more? Can we get it?
Yes, sir.
Pete Barnett, 8428 Green Street. I was on the planning board years ago, and have any of you read the 2018 highway road transportation thing that we paid a lot of money for that tells you in 2018 we had no space for any more people? Now we're going to buy 5,000 of them. I appreciate Todd going into all that other information because he's good at it and he has the time. I'm retired. I don't want to have to do it. But if you guys said this was a voting meeting, which meant you were going to try and make a choice. This is baloney. You got nothing. They haven't been to the highway department. They haven't been to Swift Mud. What are we voting on? What are you people voting on? Changing our ordinance, which we said, and I don't know how many times you have to say it again, the people have already said no. Zero. We're not interested. We don't want 10-story buildings. Pretty simple. That's why we made the ordinance years ago at that height level. If you want to come in and be a responsible businessman and make money, hopefully everybody will be with you. But 10 stories is like the elephant up in Hudson for 10 years. It's a waste of the city's time. It's the waste of the infrastructure, our water. I mean, we have enough problems. I still get brown water at my house. I didn't before, but I get it now. And I know there's a lot of problems out there. So that's what we need to be basing our money on. The infrastructure that we already have. Because he's not going to build it. That's all I got to say. I mean, I've been here 12 years, and I've seen the good years, and it's going downhill. And I'm sorry that the mayor owns a piece of land over there that he wants to make money on. But to me, he should recuse himself from this whole damn thing. He owns property there. He should have no discussion. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Is there going to be a question?
What questions will be?
Okay, so of the things, well, it's public comment. Well, okay. Once public comment is closed, the board can ask questions of the city planner, the applicant, and if they want to address anything that they've heard in public comment, they are free to do so. Well, there'll be a moment where we're going to say, hey, what's your question? And you're going to answer. Not today. That's not going to happen. But the things that you have brought forth, everyone's taking note of. So if that means you want to come up, come on.
Well, I don't think I used my 3 minutes a moment ago, so I'll do that. Yeah, I agree.
He's saying you did. Wait.
Thank you very much.
You've already been up. I'm sorry. If you already have been up,
yes.
You can't come back up.
Johnson.
You can't already come back up. Sorry.
He's in here this time.
Oh,
Hold on.
He already
He
conceded.
has to approach the podium.
He already conceded time, didn't he?
He already.
Did you already concede your time earlier?
He did not.
He did not.
Darville from 8248 Aquila.
Don, you
Give me my 3 minutes.
You already gave yours to Todd.
I'm sorry?
Did you already concede your time to Todd?
Yeah, no. No.
Okay. All right.
Hold on.
Hold
on. Hold on. Wait. 1 second. He did. Okay. Yeah, he already conceded his time.
Right, hold on.
He's done.
Would anyone else like to concede their time to the gentleman? Please Approach the podium.
Can I just say my time, Bill? I'm a resident.
Sure, absolutely.
Now you can get back up.
Ryan Burke, 4529 Harbor Point.
Time for public comment.
I'd like to concede my time to the gentleman here.
Perfect, thank
Thank you. You just want to get up.
He does, he wants to talk to you.
We don't know if you guys are going to make a decision in 2 weeks or not. I hear that, and I go back to my point I made a while ago. There seems to be a phenomenal amount of miscommunication, confusion, a lack of facts to what we're doing here. For example, if we're going to build this big high-riser, I hear somebody here say, it's going to be low income, Section 8. What impact is that going to have on property values? What impact is that going to have on, and this was stated, police, the need for police? I live right over here. What's it going to do to roads? You got to be kidding me. There's just too much information needed to make a decision like this at this point in time. Even if we're going to consider it, what are we considering? Does anybody know what we're considering on doing? No. Well, there you go. So how can this community support your decision when you look right here and they tell you they don't know what we're doing?
If there's no one else, I'll close it. Last call. At this time, I'll close the comments from the public. And I'll bring it to the board. I will start round robin. Mr. Malin.
Okay. First of all, this.
Can't hear you.
Tammy, sorry.
No, get closer.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Tammy, your presentation was pretty good, with one exception. No one back here can read it. I've sat back in these meetings, and when you put in number 12 font, when it comes up on these, it looks like number 2 font in the dark. I think that might be part of our communications problems. If you could get some of your staff to redo these and make the font larger so everybody in the audience can read it and keep up with it, I think that would be a lot better. Okay. And then, I'm going to refrain from comments from Mr. Burke because I can get to those next time. Let's just leave for that. Like I said, when no one can read what's on here and they can't follow along, it's just like either no information or misinformation. You can't read it, so you have to make your own interpretation of it. Okay? Thank you.
Ms. Simpson.
I was just wondering if anybody knew how we compared with the county and Newport Richey for this change, and if we're the same as them right now. Does anybody know?
Yes.
Looks like she might.
Miss Tammy.
She stood up, so
So one thing I was able to do was some research, and it's in the staff report. So you can see what I pulled for Newport Richey, for Tarpon Springs, and also for the county. And so I believe the highest, Tarpon Springs had a limited category. I think they allowed up to 40 units per acre, and that was the highest. They do have a provision for like a special area plan. So if a proposal is brought forward to the local government, they can, it's probably with a lot of detail, and so they can make decisions based on something higher. But Pasco County, I believe they're amending their comp plan now, and I recall at a meeting with staff, I think that they're going up to 27 units per acre. And the city of Newport Richey in the coastal areas where they have condos, I think it goes up as high as 30 units per acre. This is from memory, but if you look in that staff report, and I believe that's online, that anybody can pull up and look at, and we'll of course put the updated one up there. But there is an analysis of those nearby communities.
Okay. Randy.
I have a general question. I don't know how to understand some of these things. So, talking about density per acre, I have a question about the discussion of density per acre. Is there somebody here who's more the authority, you or?
No, that'd be
Tammy.
Tammy.
Okay. It was mentioned in a earlier person speaking up at the podium that the density is considered per individual, a specific acre, not the acreage of the entitled lot. Is that correct? Is it
So the way that
individual acre?
So the way that the applicant has requested a text amendment to create a new category would allow for, across this entire Cody River Landing area, to have up to 60 units per acre on any property that comes forward and gets a future land use plan amendment to use that, up to a cap of 900 across the entire category. So whomever gets in there and gets their first 900 units first they could conceivably use that up, but you'd have no more than 900 units across the entire area.
Okay, so it's not considered at an individual acre.
It is, it's considered,
If you can't,
considered 60 units per acre up to 900. So it's an upset limit. So you could, conceivably, if you're the first 2-3 properties that come in and you can use up those 900 acres, you cannot go above 60 units per acre on your property. But if you could, or sorry, you could go up to 60 units per acre, but in no case can the total unit count across the entire area, not your property, but across the entire area, no case could it exceed 900 units. So it's a cap that's area-wide, but the cap per property is 60 units per acre.
I'm trying to clarify it. It's really based on the size of the property, not
It is.
on it. Not like if you had 2 acres, if you had 60 people on one,
Right.
units on one side and there was nothing on that side, it's
If you had a half an acre, and there's some other other things to consider relative to the zoning, but that's another thing, and we'll get into that at the next meeting. But if you had a half an acre, you could do 30 units per acre because it's half of the 60. So it's essentially a measure of intensity that's done on an acre by acre, just so we could, kind of have a uniformity. Yes, it is.
a whole lot.
And that's typical in your comp plan and across all your categories. You'll have 18 units per acre. That's the way it's measured. It's called density.
My second question is, does that include land underwater?
I do not believe currently that if it's wetlands, that's one thing. I think submerged land, no, but that would be something we'd need to, I do not think so, but we'd have to look at the regulations the city has in place as well as the state regulations. I would say submerged lands, no.
So it looks like one parcel that we're talking about here, looks like 40% of its acreage is underwater. I may be reading the maps wrong, but that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and so one of the notations that is in the staff report is that there are other regulations that would work to potentially and most likely reduce the ability to achieve 60 units per acre. So it's a max. It's not a promise. So you have to come in and you have to do stormwater, provide for parking, setbacks, open space requirements, building coverage. There's a lot of layers. Wetlands and waterfront, submerged lands, all those things would work to ratchet down what you could actually build in an area. But this is very large scale, like overarching comp planning, and then from here we get more detailed.
Can we reduce the secondary commentary in the background? We're trying to understand what she's saying, and I can hear multiple conversations happening. So if you want to have a conversation, please step out or just listen to what she has to say, and then we can have a conversation afterwards. This is very important. We have to hear what she's trying to say. What Randy's asking is very important to him, making sure we understand density, because it's the biggest problem and/or concern for the entire board and the residents. Thanks, guys. Go ahead.
Oh,
Well, just let me make sure I understand. So when you say the total area of the property, that would include any wetlands or land submerged under the water, and then at another step in the process, it could be, the density could be reduced based on.
Yes, and so and I'll go ahead and get into it just because it's the appropriate time. But in order to use this land use category, the applicant would need to enter into a planned unit development zoning with the city. So that is something that is based on a site plan. It's based on a lot of requirements. The actual text amendment indicates all the different considerations. There's probably 12 or 15 things like open space and usable public space and stormwater management. So there's a lot of things that we've kind of teed up that are ready to be discussed in the course of a planned unit development zoning, which would be conditioned, it would be a negotiation, making sure that, because essentially the developer would be asking for certain things and the community would be looking for certain things. So they work together to kind of have a blended proposal that would work best for that site and that location.
All right, thank you.
Hold on one second. Lori, to answer your question, is page 8 on your information there. It has about halfway through, it shows you the surrounding communities and what they have currently. I highlighted it myself earlier. Yes, Ms. McKenzie.
In the staff report, in pages 5 and 6 of 11 of the staff report, it mentions affordable housing. And I just don't see any reason to put affordable housing this close to the waterfront.
So when there are references to, if there are references in anything that I wrote to affordable housing, it's for the purposes of just general affordability. You want to be able to provide a product that's accessible to your community, but it in no way refers to any sort of affordable housing program such as may be available through the grants as the woman said earlier, but this does not have, I know that the Pasco County has an area median income of maybe like $92,000 for a family of 4, and they have different ranges all the way from 120% of that all the way down to maybe 30% of low, very low, and we're not looking at those income bands. We're just looking at something that would be accessible to people in West Pasco, so it's not necessarily an affordable program. It's just in your comprehensive plan today, it says we should provide affordable housing, but not necessarily, a program of
within the city.
We need to look at what the demographics are of our city and what are the needs of those communities and think about what the needs are. Where are we falling short? Do we have too much of this or that? And so affordability is one type of consideration for providing housing in a community. But it's not a Section 8 or anything like that. That's not what affordable means in this context.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Good. All right, a few points and questions I'd like to ask. Utilizing the data you provided with the staff report, I turned it into a technicolor rainbow and highlighted all sorts of things. So the very first one I want to discuss is the question Lori asked. According to your document you provided us, the city of Newport Richey, who is our closest neighbor, as you can see, who, in my personal estimation, has done a wonderful job with, they've had some hiccups, we all know it, but the modification of downtown and what they've done with Orange Lake and everything else has now become a very nice place to look at, a great place to take my family for dinner. I can walk around, I can park my vehicle, I can take my dog for a walk, do all those things, which is what we lack in the city. So we've lacked the 25 years that I've lived here. We've lacked it, and I've been harping constantly. We need to create some kind of synergy. And for that reason, I applaud Mr. Burke and his ideal. But I have concerns, very, very large concerns. As Ross said when he was here, I think he left earlier, this is in his front yard. Well, this is in my backyard. So, and the fact that we have, it's almost as we're putting the cart before the horse. Now, I understand there's concerns with the citizens that there is a process that needs to happen here. And Mr. Burke has been made very aware of what the process is by the city, by the planners themselves, and everything else. The citizens have not been made aware of that process and don't really understand how that process works. First of all, they thought they were coming here to listen to us vote today on something that we just got and we're just starting to read. They have concerns with a survey that they put out that they don't believe has been presented and to correctly for them, what they've come up with and voiced. That's all I keep hearing. We said this, and nobody's listening to us. And that's a problem. So that's my first concern. Secondly, the largest one you mentioned was the city of Tarpon Springs is 40 units per acre. So you're suggesting 60 units per acre, which is 50% more than they have. And if you respond, feel free, go ahead.
This is a proposal by an applicant.
Understood.
I'm just simply helping you to analyze.
I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just making a statement. So,
Yeah.
and thank you for
Sounded like a finger
So, and I understand that is. I'm a real estate broker by trade. I understand highest use of properties and how to get the most out of it. And trust me, as a person who owns multiple properties in the city with my wife, I'm well aware of what my tax dollars go to, and happy that we have the services we have, the utilities we have, the police we have, even if we have green water every once in a while, utilities we have, the fire department we have, the building staff we have, everything. That's a wonderful part of living here. As somebody who just returned from a vacation yesterday, I couldn't tell you how excited I was when I pulled in the city of Port Richey and I was like, we're home. I was excited to see it. Bay Boulevard was just recently paved. That was nice. I didn't have to hit the same pothole I have to avoid every single time driving in town. So there are things that we live here, and the reason we live here is because we do love the village of feel that we have. Mr. Burke stated that. He loves that he lives here. I've sold many houses to people in Carver Point, and they love what they have here. Even though they're isolated behind two gates, they still feel like they're part of this community. But we need to make sure that the citizens feel like we're looking out for them as well. That's my first concern, because I think the density is too high. And I understand there's cost of business. Cost of business is very, very real. So, but I think we should look at units per acre. In addition, I think that citizens need to understand as well, this is the beginning of a process. This is just the beginning of a process. And you know, because you're on the Comprehensive Unit Land Use Board. This is just the first piece. Then it will go to P&Z to discuss how to change the zoning so they can even do this that he's talking about doing.
But it never went to comp
It
plan.
doesn't need to. This process does not require that.
So this process kind of supersedes that, correct?
It's two different things.
Right, okay.
This
So-
is a specific application, and there's a process for that per state law and your code. The other comprehensive land use plan committee, that may not be the proper name, is more specific to the overall review of the comp plan, which is different than what this is. This is a
But I would add, I would think that because of the nature of the text amendment, that is a vision type of exercise. I mean, granted, it's a private resident or applicant who's come forward, and so I get that. But if you were to do this on your own, to say we want to have a new category, the Comprehensive Land Use Committee would be the first stop, in my opinion. I think now that it's a little bit, this is very unique. Let's just put it this way. Cities and counties don't get text amendments requests all the time. So we're kind of thrust into this. If I could speak to the survey and the tasks that came out of that, the whole project was to do a survey, to come up with a preliminary vision of what that survey said, to go back into the community. We did an outline of a scope for services that would include that sort of community engagement, and then looking at specific regulations that would help implement that. It's just that we didn't get there. We were marching in that direction, but this application presented itself, and so we are, we're doing our duties of responding to an application to the city. So it's not as though things have been pushed aside. It's just that it's never tidy. Planning isn't tidy, as we say. But we try to do the best we can to keep the community, informed and involved. And that was the purpose of give us a little bit more time to be able to digest this information, get you out some good data and a recommendation, and then let you decide on that versus just something that's kind of, half-baked.
Well, along that line then, on page 11 and also on page 13, there's a very specific statement that I highlighted. It says, will require thoughtful planning, design, and implementation.
It's saying as a community.
I agree 100%. And that's the reason I brought it to your point. As a community, it requires thoughtful planning, design, and implementation.
Because
we're kind of in an impasse where I feel like the thoughtful part is kind of jumping a couple steps.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have begged for the city to move into the 20th century for 20 years of living here. And I used to drive through that trailer park to get to my house on Miller Bayou. And I'll never forget the first time I drove down that street. I wasn't in real estate at the time, actually. And I drove the street, and my wife looked at me and she said, "Where the hell are you taking me?" And I said, "Trust me, you'll get it. You'll see it when we get there." And we turned on Miller Bayou Drive, and she saw it. And she was like, "Okay, I get it." Even last year when he had the storm, many of us were underwater last year. I'll never forget the statement of the guy standing inside of my house while my wife is categorizing our life on forms. And the FEMA guy looks at me and staring in the backyard. He crosses his arms. He looks at me and he goes, "I get it. I'd live here too." It's important to us. And because of that fact, I think that the process itself we need to make sure that we have all the data so that we can sit at dining room tables later on with our neighbors and say that we did the right thing for everybody. And for my children, who are going to eventually take my house because they damn sure aren't going to let me sell it. So I think it's just one of those things I think we just kind of need to make sure we have all the data. So that's where I'm with that. Anybody else from the board?
I have,
Yes, ma'am.
just for future, we're going to have a presentation that is going to be shown at the meeting. Could it be part of the agenda? Because I think
Certainly.
that might help some people in
Yes.
the audience.
It's just all about time,
Yeah.
you know, and through what I had, I borrowed from presentations that I gave to you guys in December, and so it'll be a much more organized and data-driven.
No rush.
Yeah, no rush. Thank you.
Joe, Lori, anything last comments on this matter? On this matter,
No, everything's pretty much been answered, so.
Randy?
Yeah, one or two more questions about what we thought we were going to do today. But whatever meeting it turns into, and we actually take a vote, okay, what exactly are we going to be voting on? Is it going to be the height of the building? Is it going to be the density? Is it going to be what are we here to vote on?
It's just a comprehensive plan amendment. We're looking at text, and that's in your packet. It's underlined. That's the exact text with the changes that I'm going to suggest, because there's a couple things that we need to make sure that, you know, it's not a self-executing future land use category that leads to a comp plan future land use map amendment. We need to make that clear that it's a locational criteria, and we're not creating a future land use category like a mapped area by virtue of a text amendment. So the first thing is a text amendment with the changes, and the second thing is the future land use map amendments for those two applications, the two sets of properties. And I'll lay those out very clearly. I'll have slides for each one of those. That's the only thing. As far as the building coverage, parking standards, things that are more appropriate for zoning, those will happen at the time of zoning, rezoning. So you'll have an opportunity to discuss those at length during zoning, but this does not provide for any of those relief or variances, I think as they're called in the application. It'll clearly be what we set forth in the ordinance that Nancy puts together, so it'll be clear what you're adopting.
Okay.
Good. Good. All right, that time I'll close it for the board. All right, second item on the agenda, future land use map.
You mixed it. You mixed it.
You mix the two together?
Oh, I mixed the two together.
Yes.
Perfect, even
Yeah.
better then.
I thought
Okay,
you
great.
meant that, sorry.
Are we going to be able to speak on that?
Yes, Phil, please, Phil, go free.
Remind them, I thought everyone caught that, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
Go ahead, feel free.
It was supposed to be a second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Phil Apps, 5436 Blue Point Drive. Y'all are making some great points here. I certainly appreciate y'all taking the time to look this over. My biggest question is you're going to make recommendations to them on how to make this happen. Why? We don't need any changes to what we have. Everything looks good, make recommendations on how we can improve what we currently have. We've got good density. Everything was set, just like it was previously stated, with the current densities that we have. Those are fine. Work with what we have. Don't try to improve. Don't try to add a whole bunch of people to our city. Please, we don't need them. We already got density. Just drive down US 19. But please consider the residents and what you're hearing when you make your recommendations, okay? Thank you so much.
Mr. McCleary left. Karen? Absolutely.
You said in your document it had a word, or a couple of words, said low income. But you said, that's not what I mean. Low income has its definition. Your interpretation of the word is irrelevant legally. If it says low income, it means low income.
Yeah, we got a second agenda.
That's fine, but every time anybody comes up, they need to state their
Oh, we can't say his name. I didn't catch it.
That's Brad Johnson.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please.
Ross Coyle, 5531 Pasco Way. Just a quick question. Is all this information available to us? Because it's a pretty quick presentation, and frankly, I get out of that map, I see City of Port Richey in some colors, so it doesn't tell me much. Is it on a website where I can go to this and take a look, or?
We're going to make the presentation that was provided available on our website. And then, of course, if you want to request it, you can email me and I can send it to you via email, but we will be putting it on the website.
Okay. I mean, can you pick it up here too, or is it already in print or in a booklet?
It's not in print, it's digital at this time.
Okay, all right. So just,
You can send an email. Yep.
okay, great. All right, thank you.
Mrs. Burke.
Ryan Burke, 4529 Harbor Point. I think I want to make sure I heard correctly, and I hope it came across, but I heard that this was really to allow for a step to do a planned unit development or planned development unit that then would really allow us to use a lot of the city's feedback, the residents' feedback, to really create something that would then have to be approved as a planned development unit. Want to make sure that everyone understands we're not trying to keep anything from anybody. We can't do anything with the way things are written right now. And so that plan unit development, and my understanding of it, really allows us then to work and say, okay, what can we do? What can we do that actually makes sense from both a financial standpoint, sustainability standpoint, and then incorporating all of that feedback from the city? And so it's just right now, I think I want to make clear, we can't really do that. And we have invested a lot of money. The next steps are the things that you guys talked about with getting the engineering and doing a lot of those things. Those are all very expensive things. And what we're hoping to unlock is the ability to have the real conversations around how can we start planning this and putting it together, knowing that, and that's a key for that 900 too. Part of the reason it's written that way is to make sure it had to be done through a planned unit development, so that it had to incorporate the city's feedback and prevent somebody from coming in. If I get hit by a bus and all of a sudden my wife says, I'm not closing on this property now, that someone else couldn't come in and just put in the rumors that I've all heard, right? Like, I've heard 12 stories, I've heard 10 stories, I've heard unbelievable things that we don't know and wouldn't plan on doing. Other thing is, I don't think it says, I want to be certain, because if it does, I want to make sure I have the opportunity to revise it. Make sure it does not say low income. It does not. Okay, I want to make that very, very clear. There's no.
It says affordable.
Of low income. There is a mention of being affordable and making sure that we can accommodate people living within the city and people coming into the city. So those are points of clarification. I want to make sure there's a lot of information out there that I have no idea where it came from. There's been 2 newspaper articles written. I don't think anybody knew who I was for the 15 years I lived here. It's kind of nice. And I've been in 2 newspaper articles, but I have yet to talk to anyone that works at the newspaper. I have no idea where they're coming from. So again, I would open up to everybody. Feel free to ask me. I'm happy to be open with all of you. Feel free to ask me. My hands have been tied on how much more I can do to incorporate all the feedback and start putting plans in place, letting people start seeing things beyond, like, until we get the ability to kind of work within this plan development unit and get buy-in and get something executed. So that's the goal. And I don't think there's a perfect roadmap for this. In fact, the application we filled out, like, no one was certain, is that the right application, is it not? So I think we're doing the best we can with what we have, but we've also heard you, and it's important to me too. Like, again, I'm a member of this community. So that's the only thing I want to make sure I make clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at that time, I'll go ahead and I'll close it to the board as well as the public. Thank you very much for all your comments. As you can see, the planner has a little bit of work for us before our next meeting and some items that need to be addressed that the city has provided and asked for, as well as the board. And as such, we will close that agenda. Is there any old business we need to discuss?
When are we planning to discuss the seawall code again?
That is ready to come before you, but due to the time we felt that would go into this meeting, it was held back. But it's ready to come back.
Probably within the next month? Okay, perfect. All right, great.
Sean, could you clarify the plan moving forward?
Say that again?
The plan moving forward, the next meeting?
Sure, absolutely. So the next meeting will be on the 13th is scheduled for. That's what we actually stated for. At which time, I'm assuming Tammy will come back and she will try to address the concerns and questions that were presented today. In addition, I know I personally have asked, and I was brought to Veronica's attention, that staff actually will have their reports ready for us, because I asked the same question you all have asked. I don't see anything from staff showing impact to the police department, impact to the fire department, impact to utilities. So we should have that data as well, at which time we can go through and decide that. And like the city manager stated before, if we're able to make a decision or have a conversation regarding having a decision or a motion, we can do it at that time. If not, we will ask for more time. So this is not a rush through it. Mr. Burke understands this is I would hope he understands. He seems to understand that we need to understand exactly what he's asking for, but the impact it's going to have to our citizens and those of us who live here. So, and honestly, to staff, because they have to be able to support it as well. So there's a lot that needs to be done. So
13th meeting may not be a vote?
the 13th it's very possible. Yes, sir. So 1 o'clock. Yes, sir. So, all right. At that time, if there's no other old business, I will entertain any other motions.
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming.